Night, April 21st, 2026. Look at this headline from the New York Post. Here it is. Palantir backs return of U.S. military draft. Slams regressive cultures in 22-point statement. Oh, not only are they calling for the draft to return, but Alex Karp over there of Palantir wants to also put in service, national service. I've been warning in my book, Grave Influence, back to 2008, about the Obama-styled national service built on their Public Allies organization. This is very dangerous. Been talking about it for a long time. We started in 2018 talking about their national service commission put together by Barack Obama and John McCain, which also included not only looking at mandating national service, so many hours to get out of high school, junior high and high school, but also then drafting America's daughters. We're going to go through this 22-point plan tonight. I think you're going to find it quite interesting what some of the big tech companies have in store for America. Just think social credit scores, power, and much more. We'll get into that tonight with Patrick Wood. We'll get an update from Annie. Where are we at? The Strait is open. The Strait is closed. The Strait is open. The Strait is closed. We're having negotiations. We're not having negotiations. We're going to go to the table. We're not going to the table. What is going on? How long will this last? Is this a rope-a-dope strategy that we have seen by the Muslims again and again, the Islamists, through what goes on in Gaza, Hamas? And how long will this play out? I also have a clip from one of the leaders over there in Europe about what this is doing to fertilizers and fuel and inflation and maybe the need for rationing. Well, maybe the globalists, that's what they want. I'll get into that tonight. Maybe they want food rationing because you can control people that way. We'll talk about many things tonight with Patrick Wood and Annie Cyrus. Then I want to have with me for a few moments Dr. Lana. Because look at this article here. Dementia could begin in your legs, warns a leading neurologist. Melissa was lecturing me this morning about not moving enough and that you've got to have strong legs. That if you have a strong set of legs, particularly thighs, you have the ability to get up, get down, get up, get down. Of course, is based on the strength of your legs. And as you get older, if you have a hard time getting up and getting down, your legs are weak. If your legs are weak, you are a prime candidate, according to some studies now, for dementia. We'll talk about that. And then how about this one? Neurology, plant-based dietary patterns, and risk of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias in the multi-ethnic cohort study. Again, I don't want to get dementia. I don't want to get Alzheimer's. I don't want to get Parkinson's. Can you imagine? Particularly when you know you're getting it, right? You know you have it. You know what's coming, and you know what your family's going to have to face. I want to fight that off. And so I want to know about these things, from plant-based to making sure I'm getting plenty of exercise, getting the treadmill out, walking on the treadmill. Some very interesting conversations tonight. How do we get some of these things out of our brain, like mercury and other things that are tied directly back to Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's? We'll get into all that with Dr. Lana. All right, Logan, do we have the video of your mom and cousins and sisters skiing? Oh, we can do it tomorrow. Yeah, we'll do it tomorrow. We have a full show tonight. I want to see all 5 of them skiing at the same time, getting pulled up at the same time. Pretty remarkable. It's fun. Fun video. All right, before we do, remember, we're brought to you by you, listener-supported network. Or we just put it all behind a paywall and make everybody pay. We don't want to do that. We want to reach a lot of people, new people, people that would never watch us. We have a lot of people that just stumble on us. And guess what? They begin watching. And some of them actually, believe it or not, they have changed their way of thinking. Their worldview has been completely changed. Some of them have gone from being atheists, agnostics, New Agers to being Christians, strong, committed Christians. We have so many, praise the Lord, in our audience that have heard the truth through our broadcast for so many years, and they will call in and talk about it. I used to be a New Ager. I used to be an agnostic or an atheist. I started listening to your show. I started learning, and I became a Christian. So we don't want to put this behind a paywall. We don't want to put our light under a bushel. We want to push it out to everybody. But, you know, our bandwidth streaming bill is like $8,000 a month. We could save almost instantly $8,000 or very near that. I mean, we still would have some streaming bandwidth bills if we put it all behind a paywall, but we could really limit that bill by cutting off people that are watching that aren't members. In other words, if you're not paying, you don't get to watch. We could drastically drop that bill, but we don't want to. We don't really look at that and go, oh, no, that's bad. We look at that and go, that's great. We got a lot of people watching and listening and learning and hearing the truth and hearing the gospel and learning a biblical worldview. We don't get discouraged by the high bandwidth bills. We're encouraged because it means so many people are watching and learning. But we do want to raise the funds to cover our bills so we can keep pushing those out. Not to mention the guys in the control room, they won't work for candy bars. I don't know. I tried. They expect to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. They just sent over their hours tonight, so I got to sit down and write checks tomorrow to all of them. So we have to raise the funds, the capital to keep going. One way is worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com, even a $10, $15, $20, $25 a month contribution. Most of our donors are small dollar donors. It does matter. It does add up. Most of our donors are small dollar donors. That's pretty much true with every organization. Do we have some donors that are bigger donors and are very, very generous? Yes. But we can't make it without the small dollar donors. The small dollar donors collectively beat out everybody. Our organization is largely supported by small dollar donors, $10, $15, $20, $25 a month. Now, if you can do 50, 100 or more, great. We'd love it. But I don't want any of you sitting on the sideline saying my $10 a month won't matter. I won't waste my time signing up for a contribution, $10 a month. Well, that's wrong. So please consider going to worldviewfoundation.com and making a contribution of any size. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Today, for an hour on my radio show at 1 o'clock Central, I covered the question of why women pastors are not biblical. That was because a lady emailed in and wanted me to do a show on that. She's looking at people like Pastor Paula White and this UCC bishop woman that proclaimed that we need a third testament, rip out pages of the Bible that she thinks are wrong and vitriolic, that it's not the word of God. It's about God, but it's not the word of God, says this UCC bishop. And someone emailed and said, can you do a program on why women pastors are not biblical? And so I said, yeah, I can do that. So I was up pretty early this morning. I spent a lot of time studying, and I put together an entire article you'll find at worldviewtimes.com right now, worldviewtimes.com. And then I did an hour radio/TV program on that. Now, folks, I want to just make it real clear if you go watch it. I'm not trashing women. I'm married to one. My daughter's a woman. My granddaughter's a girl. So, in fact, most of my audience, did you know the largest demographic of my audience is women 55 years of age and older? Very pro-woman. God's prohibition against women pastors is not for punishment. It's for protection. It's not for punishment. It's for protection. Now, I'm not laying out in this article that you can go look at and read free of charge at worldviewtimes.com. I'm not giving you Brannon's opinion, okay? I give you lots and lots of scripture. Lots and lots of scripture, okay? I'm laying it out from the Bible for you, what the Lord says, okay? So I hope you'll go and read it. But let me just ask you this in hopes of trying to encourage some of you to read this and watch today's broadcast, which will air right after tonight's show again. If any man that would send his daughter onto the front line to fight Hamas or Hezbollah, you would think that dad is crazy. Or what if you're a young husband, you're 21, 22, 23 years old, 24 years old. Would you willingly send your wife to fight on the battlefield? No. Most men would say no, not combat. Now, I know women libs and those groups want it because they hate the family, the definition of the family. They hate the traditional complementarian roles of men and women. But most men in America would not be for sending their wife, their daughter out to the battlefield to fight. So let me ask you this. Would you send your wife out to the pasture to watch the sheep all night if you knew that there were ravenous wolves in those fields that wanted to attack your wife and then eat the sheep? Well, you'd say, my wife's not doing that. My wife's not built to do that. That's not what my wife's ability is. My wife's a very feminine, beautiful lady who has a lot of skills, but that's not in her DNA. That's not her makeup. That's not her gift. Well, of course it's not. That's not why God created her. It's not the gifts God gave her. And we as men want to protect women because we understand they're not the weaker vessel. That's the phrase talks about be aware of women. They're the weaker vessel. The more accurate word would be they're fragile. They're more fragile. You can't talk oftentimes to a woman the same way you can a man. They would get a little offended and weepy and maybe outright cry. They are more sensitive. They are more emotional. That's not a negative thing. Do you want a mom that has no emotion? Hey, Mom, I'm sick. Oh, shut up. I don't want to hear about it. Oh, wow. No. When you come home from school and you had a horrible day or something's happened, do you want a mom that shows no emotion when you tell her what has just happened to you? No. God made women emotional. Men can be emotional too, but God made women with a certain emotion about them, which is what makes them wonderful moms and wives. But they're not weaker in their intelligence, their discernment, or even their gift to teach the Bible. Some women are better Bible teachers and know the Bible better than some men. Some women know the Bible better than some pastors. I know some women like that. The deal is they're just not called to be pastors who exercise authority over men, according to the text. But they can minister and teach other women. Older women particularly are commanded to do this for the younger women. They can teach children. And the old saying, behind every great man is a woman, right? Well, there's a mom, there's a daughter. There's a mom, there's a wife. A lot of great men, there's a mother back there and there's a wife that's been back there involved and maybe still involved. First, the mother who helped make him the man he is, because she spent more time with him than the dad who was out making a living. The mother helped make him who he is. And then the wife comes along and takes over and keeps making him who he is. Women have such a powerful role to play. In fact, the Bible even goes into detail on the great reward that is for women through childbirth and child rearing and creating those kind of men, those kind of children, both male and female, that are ones that follow the Lord. Women have such an important role. You know the old saying, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Women are some of the most powerful people in the world. And when it comes to getting things done, I always found that the women were the ones that got it done. When it came to putting together conferences across the country, rallies, educational summits that I started speaking at in the early 90s, it was always the majority, 99% of the time, women. Women that were getting it done. Women that were booking me to come in and speak. They organized the building, booked the building, organized it, promoted it. Oversaw everything, and I showed up to speak. It was all a committee of women that got it done. Many men know exactly what I'm talking about. No one is talking about women's inability. The prohibition against women pastors is not punishment, it's protection. Would you throw your wife to the rabid wolves? No. Then why would you throw them to the ravaged wolves that are the false teachers, the people that are risen from within that were warned about in the book of Acts? Why would you put a woman up against those ravenous wolves in the church? You wouldn't. And being a pastor, a shepherd, an overseer is a spiritual calling, a biblical calling that some men are not qualified for. Not only are women not to be pastors, some men are not to be pastors. It's a specific calling, a specific office for a specific reason, but women are called to ministry. But women are not called to be pastors for a couple reasons, but one is also for protection for them and for the flock. So someone in our audience asked for it, and I did it. And I have to tell you, we're getting a lot of emails today, a lot of emails thanking us for the broadcast, wanting to share it with friends, because I don't give you Brandon's opinion, I give you the scripture. And it's very timely with people like Paula White and others running around out there claiming to be pastors. Actually, you get into it and you'll see that oftentimes when women fall into that category, it's a sign that God is bringing judgment. You say, well, what about in Israel where you had to see some women had to rise? Well, first of all, we're not Israel, number one. But number two, don't take what is something that is not normative and make it the standard. The Bible also says, it's appointed unto every man to die once and then face the judgment. But Lazarus, that poor guy, died twice. But the Bible says it's appointed a man to die once. Yep, that's the norm. That's the norm. Don't take the exception and make it the rule. It's not. A few times you see a woman comes up and stands forward and is used in a public ministry capability because the men refuse to do it. That's not the standard. That's the exception. I got that question today, so I'll bring it up again tonight. But I answer a lot of these questions in today's show at worldviewtube.com and into today's article available at worldviewtimes.com. But if you appreciate all of this content, it takes quite a bit of time to put together an hour presentation like I did today with all the Bible verses up very early, preparing, studying, writing this article, getting it all organized. And then we put it out there for free. I cannot spend these kind of hours studying, preparing, and on the air and then lose money and go in the hole. I would have to go out and get another job and do another full-time job. And if I had to go get another full-time job, I won't have time to study, to prepare, and to be on the air. So that's why we're listener supported, so we can do this, but also so we can push it out to people regardless of whether they can afford to pay or not, make a contribution or not. So please go to worldviewfoundation.com, make a contribution of any size, worldviewfoundation.com. I'll mention it very quickly because you already know all the ways to support us. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. I do Gatatana every day. I do Numi every day to get the glutathione. I do Bella Grace every day. I take these three things every day, folks. It's real. These are real products. These three I use every day: Bella Grace, Numi, and Gatatana. Okay? And there's all kinds of other great products here as well. I hope you'll avail yourself to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Now, I'm going to be off the air Thursday and Friday. I want to warn you. I'm going to be off the air Thursday and Friday because my birthday is coming up and my family wants to spend some time with me. My daughter and granddaughter are coming to town, and I'm going to spend some time with them. And I also have to spend a lot of time reading the Revelation commentary. You know, I spent a year and a half teaching through that and writing that commentary. Now I'm having to edit it. And so my editor has me very busy, and I need to spend Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday reading and editing volume 1 and 2 of the Bible commentary so we can get it to the printer and have it out in time for this fall. So I will not be on the air unless there's massive breaking news Thursday or Friday. So I can work on those commentaries as well as spend time with family and then celebrate my 57th birthday. Now, don't go buy me a present. If you want to do something, go to worldviewfoundation.com and you can make a birthday contribution. If you want to put a little note there and say, this is for your birthday, great. Give it to the foundation. Donate to the foundation. That would be wonderful. Thank you for that. All right. Otherwise, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Let's get going. Joining me now is Patrick Wood. He was in the studio the other day for 2.5 hours, right? Well, we got to have him back because I saw an article today over at the New York Post, and I talked about it in my Worldview report, one that should cause every American, particularly parents and grandparents, to sit up and pay attention. Look at what the New York Post is reporting right here. Palantir backs return of U.S. military draft, slams regressive cultures in 22-point manifesto. Well, the part that got me, of course, was the U.S. military draft. You know what else they're calling for? I'm going to do the old Control F here. Control F, I'm going to hit service. Ah, there it is. Carp and fellow Palantir executive Nicholas Zamiska, who co-wrote the Technological Republic, also arguing for national service, including compulsory military enlistment. Said enlistment should be a universal duty for U.S. citizens. Quote, we should, as a society, seriously consider moving away from an all-volunteer force and only fight the next war if everyone shares in the risk and the cost, end quote. Really? That's the guy, Alex Karp. Let's find out a little bit about his worldview. But before we do, guys, I have been warning you guys for the longest time. Go back to my book. I know I don't want to irritate you by always referring to my books, but hey, I've got like 22 of them now. A couple of them are about to be published. And I've been doing this a long time. And I only refer back to my books to show you that we were ahead of the trends and trying to warn people, and that you can go back and read about these things and understand them more if you go to these books. Okay, I'm not selling the books. Many of them are out of print. If you're a Vault member, you get all of them as a part of your membership as PDFs at worldviewtube.com/vault. But if you go back to my 2008 book, and I was warning about this in 2006 and 2007 while I was writing the book, which came out in 2008. If you go back to a book, Grave Influence, you'll see I have a whole segment on making kids be involved in mandatory volunteerism. That's an oxymoron, right? And that was being pushed by a guy that went on to influence many people, including Jimmy Carter and others. And the idea, William James was his name, William James. And of course, mandatory volunteerism is very dangerous, because are you going to be able to volunteer your time, and you have to do so many hours of volunteerism at a approved group for getting out of junior high or high school? How many of them are going to let you volunteer to work for our ministry, Worldview Weekend Foundation, our church, or work for our broadcast network, Worldview Tube, our Christian Worldview Network? You think they would be allowed to rack up community hours volunteering with us? I would highly doubt it. Yeah, because the goal, if you go back and study it, as I detailed then, was really based on the model of William James, and based on the model also of Public Allies run by Michelle and Barack Obama. And one publication referred to it as Michelle's boot camp for radicals, where they were openly teaching all of the radical isms, feminism, all this kind of thing, multiculturalism. So I've been warning about this. Mandating of national service to even get out of school. You'll remember, for some of you, that I actually had a whole PowerPoint presentation that I built for you guys, and it was about this document here, Inspired to Serve. Now, notice the date, March of 2020. But we began to talk about it, and you'll find my radio show, if you go into the vault, we began to talk about it in February 20th, 2018, when Captain Udell Myers, former Marine in Vietnam, good friend of mine, brought this to my attention. And Captain Udell Myers and I did so many broadcasts warning that this was coming, that this panel, this commission had been put together by Barack Hussein Obama and then John McCain as Obama was going out the door. And we said they're going around the country holding these little meetings on including women in the draft, drafting America's daughters. But they're also studying mandatory volunteerism, national service. We began to warn people. And of course, as we expected, they eventually came out with that report in March of 2020. And voila, what do they recommend? Yeah, we need to include women in the draft, and we need to start mandating national service to be able to graduate. And they make it clear it will include homeschoolers. You're not getting out of this either. Well, now we have Palantir. Now, why is this important to give this background before I go to Patrick Wood? Because if you are going to combine education and volunteerism, so-called, you're talking about really now social credit scores. If you want to make sure that every child is going to be involved in this mandatory national service volunteering at some politically approved group by the local government, state and federal, through the schools, you have to track it. And how do you enforce it? Because some people are just going to say, go kick rocks. We're not doing it. Homeschoolers, we're homeschooling, we're not doing it, kick rocks. Government? Really? Well, good luck having a national ID, a driver's license, a real ID, travel, job, digits. We'll just turn you off. Folks, they're going to be able to enforce this. And again, I hate to say it, but you go back to my book from 1995, Reclaiming a Nation at Risk. And I began to talk about a certificate of mastery being promoted by Department of Education officials, well-known national figures, including then the governor of Colorado, Roy Romer, who said that if you don't acquire one of these certificates and you acquired it by obtaining effective objectives, attitudes, values, feelings, and beliefs, and I have the first ever certificate of mastery ever given out in the country in Cottage Grove, Oregon, to Jay Tennyson, whose mother we worked with closely in the early 90s on fighting the whole education reform movement. Governor Roy Romer is on video saying, as the chairman of the National Goals Panel and governor of Colorado, that if you don't get one of these certificates, there'll be no job for you. There will be no life for you. It's in my book, 1995. You can go read it all. If you're a Vault member at worldviewtube.com/vault, just look under library, ebooks, and there it is. Now, when I was writing on these things, we knew that they wanted to incorporate computers because I have a whole section, I think it's chapter 6 in that book, on how they want computers to collect all this data on kids and to track the kids from cradle to grave. But in 1995, when that book came out, we didn't know about something like Palantir was coming. We didn't understand the technologies that were going to happen, where they'll track everything and turn you on, turn you off, your digital economy to bring you into compliance. So, my friends, what we're talking about tonight is not new. We've been talking about it a long time. But now you're talking about one of the most powerful computer companies, data center companies, I think, in the world, who's already, according to multiple reports, heavily integrated into our national intelligence arena and the U.S. military. So you tell me, how are you going to say, I'm sorry, my child is not going to go fight one of your wars overseas and die for some other country when we won't even do what's right by getting all of these mosques out of America, Muslim Brotherhood out of America, the jihadis out of America. We're letting them build compounds all over the place. Think I'm going to go have my kid fight and die somewhere else? We're not even defending our own country. Fight and die on our soil, a lot of us would be willing to do that for freedom and liberty, but certainly not overseas if we're not going to fight our own wars here. And you're going to say, kick rocks, government. And they're going to say to your child, then we just turned them off. We don't have to throw them in jail. They just won't have a life. There'll be no job for them. There'll be no life for them, as Roy Romer was talking about with the certificate of mastery. This brings it to a whole new level that we could not conceive fully in 1995. Although we kind of maybe had some inclination that technology was going there because we knew about Revelation 13. No one would be able to buy or sell unless they have a mark on their right hand or their forehead. So we had an outline. But now the picture is very clear. And now we just found out in the last 24 hours, Palantir wants the very two things that we warned about extensively. Mandatory national service, brainwashing centers is what I think they are, and bringing back the draft. And they have the ability to track it and enforce it, I believe. Joining me now is Patrick Wood. Patrick, what do you make of this opening monologue tonight?
Well, Palantir has risen to the top, and they're the main expression of what's going on in our country at the top, the technocrat class for sure. It's has lots of surprises, doesn't it?
And they have lots of power already, do they not?
Oh, yeah.
They're already
do.
heavily integrated into the intelligence arena and into the military?
Yes. All of these people are billionaires at this point. That's very disturbing by itself because billionaires have a lot of power just because they throw money around. Everybody wants to suck up to them because they have all the money in the first place. So, somebody wants to climb the ladder, get attached to an Alex Karp or Peter Thiel or an Elon Musk, you'll be set for life.
What's the worldview of Alex Karp? Tell me about his background. What do you know about him?
This is very disturbing. His education says everything, in my opinion. Number one, and this guy is not a computer jock at all. He doesn't even pretend to be. He's never probably written a line of code. But he has a BA in philosophy, number one, from an American university called Haverford College. Then he went to Stanford Law School, where he met Peter Thiel in the first place, and he got a JD from Stanford. So strike two, he's a lawyer. and then he went to Europe, in Germany in particular, and he studied, catch this, he got a PhD in neoclassical social theory at Goethe University in Frankfurt.
What does that mean?
This is the home of the Frankfurt School.
Right. And for those who don't know, the Frankfurt School came to America around 1933. They were cultural Marxists. Many of them were Jews. They said it's time to get out of Germany, rightfully so, came to America at the invitation of John Dewey. I write a whole chapter on them in the book Grave Influence from 2008. And they said, we're going to take down America with a long march through the institutions. They were greatly being influenced by Antonio Gramsci, the Italian communist, Antonio Gramsci, who had told Mussolini, you're going about it, Mussolini, the fascist, he told him, you're going about it the wrong way. You're not going to get a revolution, a lasting revolution at the end of a gun. You got to change the culture. And Mussolini didn't like that. He threw him in prison, and Antonio Gramsci had a lot of time on his hands to write. He wrote what are known as the prison letters. And the Frankfurt School studied Antonio Gramsci. They studied Sigmund Freud. They studied the father of the postmodern movement, the father of postmodernism, Friedrich Nietzsche. This helped to, they studied Friedrich Hegel of the Hegelian dialectic process, thesis and antithesis, idea, opposite idea, pit groups against each other, get them to compromise because they get tired of the conflict and move the ball down the field to the left all the time. This is the Frankfurt School with the long march through the institutions. And you're saying that Alex Karp studied at that school there in Germany that eventually brought us the Frankfurt School. So now, while he's claiming in this 22-point report that they're upset about woke ideology, I'm not buying it. I think that is a cover. I think they're for those kind of things. True or false?
I can't honestly, I don't understand his philosophy today, but he's sending out a mixed message for sure. And you have to remember, the Frankfurt School, this is the home of critical theory, where everything is criticized, everything is picked apart, and so he has all these ideas. Some seem to be conflicting with each other. Some of the statements, I think there was 20 or so in this manifesto, that seemed to be self-contradictory within that one statement. What's he thinking? Well, he doesn't think like we do. That's all I can say. He has this background that he's obviously a bright guy. He wouldn't have got through college. In fact, the record says he graduated with honors from Goethe University. So he's not
dumb. In fact, do you know that
he's not dumb?
This bio I'm reading says that he began a career as a researcher, associate, at the Sigmund Freud Institute in Frankfurt. Now, I just learned that right now. Looked him up while you were talking. What did I just tell the audience? The Frankfurt School was influenced by a few thought leaders.
Yes.
One of them being Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud, who, are you ready, guys? Thought that Christians were the people that were suffering from mental illness. They were mentally ill because, Sigmund Freud wrote, the Christians are the ones that suppress their natural inclinations for lust, cannibalism, incest, and killing. Natural inclinations, he said. He said what we would call today the neurotics, who are actually living out their natural impulses, are actually the sane ones. The crazy ones are the Christians who have suppressed these natural inclinations. That's Sigmund Freud, who the Frankfurt School loved. And one of the other people that they liked to study along with Sigmund Freud was Karl Marx. And so they took Karl Marx, Marxism, and they merged it and weaponized psychology. And that's where we're at today. Think social credit scores. Patrick, don't you think social credit scores is going to be the weaponizing of psychology as they diagnose you with all of these problems because of your worldview?
You see this in his manifesto here. Shades of it, at least. This is, what he's talking about, that everybody should be in public service sometime in their life, starting with the draft. What's this all about? Here's the guy who's taken his philosophy and he's running the most powerful surveillance network company in the whole world. And they're going to get stronger and stronger as time goes on. They're landing contracts all over the world for their spy software. It's not just spy software, but that's a big part of it for sure.
Now, what has been his connection to Facebook? You know, because I got something here if you don't.
Go ahead.
He says Karp criticizes companies like Google and Facebook for their attitude to data protection. Facebook became the foil against which Palantir defined its identity. When Palantir expanded in Palo Alto and took over a former Facebook office, they painted over a famous wall associated with Facebook. Among Palantir's leadership, there were differences in philosophy, with Peter Thiel complaining about Karp always choosing the hard, complex way when a more straightforward path might have sufficed. Despite this, Thiel largely left the operation of the company in Karp's hands. So apparently they were critical of Google and Facebook and their attitude toward data protection. What does that mean? I wonder.
Data, really? Well, Peter Thiel was involved. He's one of the first outside investor in Facebook in the first place. He made a lot of money off of it. Mm-hmm. Does Facebook have any policies of data security? I don't think so. But they're I think the idea is that the data. This is what they think. In any case, the data needs to be set free. You might remember the old movie called Free Willy, where they wanted to get this dolphin or whale, whatever it was, free and in the ocean. Well, these people say data needs to be free to the world. Free it to the world so we can analyze it and take control of it and control everything with it. So who knows?
Well, look at this. I found this book. It says that Palantir was based in Silicon Valley, but in the minds of Karp and his colleagues, it was never part of the Valley. Karp had particular contempt for Google and Facebook. He recognized early on that harvesting and selling personal data was at the heart of what they did, and that what he saw as their ethically dubious business models had the potential to hurt Palantir. If there were ever a backlash against big data, people wouldn't necessarily recognize that Palantir operated in a fundamentally different way from Google and Facebook, in that Palantir didn't collect, store, or sell data. In time, Clark became reluctant to hire people from either company. Exceptions were made, but in general, he believed that Google and Facebook employees, no matter how talented they were, had internalized a predatory approach to data that was an anathema to Palantir. Karp especially loathed Facebook. Google, as a search engine, provided legitimate value. He saw zero value in Facebook. He regarded it as frivolous and destructive, a carcinogen, as he put it. Palantir and Facebook were founded around the same time, and although they were not competitors, Facebook in some ways became the company that Palantir defined itself against. Isn't that interesting? Facebook in some ways became the company that Palantir defined itself against. That Thiel was a major investor in Facebook and sat on his board, suggested there was perhaps also a kind of sibling rivalry at play. Moreover, the two companies always seemed to be in one another's shadow. Both were headquartered for a time in the same Palo Alto office park, and when Palantir later expanded in Palo Alto, it took over a building that had previously been occupied by Facebook. Years later, Facebook and Palantir would each be ensnared in the Cambridge Analytica scandal. What do you make of their supposed disgust of Facebook harvesting data? Do you believe that? I mean, isn't that what Palantir does?
Well, they what they're hiding behind is not that they harvest data like Google did, for instance, with this so-called surveillance capitalism. However, Palantir is a shepherd of all the data. They don't collect it because they're shepherd. They'll take any data in the world that people have already collected and take it over to manage it. That's what their spy stuff is all about. So they mine the data that's already been collected by, for instance, by Facebook, by Google, et cetera. Think about all the data that was released and with Doge during the first few months of this administration. And Doge freed all this data into the cloud. Well, Palantir didn't collect that data. That was our data. That was IRS data. There was health information data. They have nothing to do with that. But they were the ones that took over the management of all that data, and they got a huge contract from the Trump administration to do just that. So they said, well, we don't collect data. Really? Okay, so you just manage data. In other words, this is very thin, in my opinion, taking shots at these companies that harvested all the data in the first place. If they had not harvested that data in the first place, Palantir wouldn't even be in existence today.
Listen to this. To land a position at Palantir, you needed to show enthusiasm for the company's mission. If a candidate didn't seem gung-ho about using technology to kill terrorists or appeared squeamish about working with the U.S. government, he or she had no chance of being hired. But here's the problem. Who defines what is a terrorist? Didn't we find out in the Obama years that he was using the DHS to say that potential terrorists were those interested in Bible prophecy, veterans, people concerned about illegal immigration, border security? Who defines terrorists these days, right? Or didn't we then see during the Biden years, if you went to the Latin Mass, you might be a domestic terrorist? If you're a mom at a homeschool, or a mom at a school board meeting protesting against cultural Marxism in the schools, you might be a potential terrorist. If you're pro-lifer, you might be a potential domestic terrorist.
Yeah. You see this in point 10 of their manifesto. And by the way, this was taken, all these points were taken out of his book in the first place. There's more to the story in his book. I can't remember the name of it offhand, but he wrote a book, Alex Karp. So here in point 10, he says, the psychologization of modern politics is leading us astray. Those who look to the political arena to nourish their soul and sense of self, who rely too heavily on their internal life finding expression in the people they never meet will be disappointed. Is there a subtle thing going on here with this, with the thought? Well, where do you have your sense of worth? And why should he care in the first place? If I have self-worth, that's my business, not his, right? But you can see his philosophy on every point almost, and it's really cracked. The people in England, by the way, you have to, they got a wind of this whole thing, and their criticism was that there were ramblings of a supervillain, and one guy, one MP in England called it a parody of a RoboCop film. Okay, well, you take one of the takeaways for sure is he's a warmonger for sure. He wants to kill our enemies with AI. And who are enemies? Terrorists in Iran, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, America. Oops, I shouldn't say that, huh?
This article, this book that I'm quoting from, it's called The Philosopher in the Valley, Alex Karp, Palantir and the Rise of the Surveillance State.
Yeah.
That's the name of the book, by Simon and Schuster. I'm going to have to read more on it because what I'm reading in there is quite interesting. I won't take the time to get into it tonight. But the fact that he's now calling for moving away from an all-voluntary force and fighting the next war if everyone shares in the risk and the cost. I mean, this is troubling that he wants to do national service, mandatory draft. When you realize his background with the Frankfurt School, what better way, by the way, and I'm not accusing him of this, but if you were talking about the Frankfurt School had a test. It was a book written in 1950. A book written in 1950, authoritarianism. And in the book, it was a lengthy book by one of the guys with the Frankfurt School, they had a test known as the F-scale test. And what determined whether or not you were a fascist, which is what was called the F-scale test, was if you had strong convictions and there were things that were not open for discussion. If there were certain things and you're like, I'm not discussing that with you. I'm not going to dialogue or find consensus with you. This is a black and white issue. And I will not negotiate. Well, that was a sign you might be a fascist. If you believed in God, universal right and wrong, you might be a fascist. You go through the F-scale test. This is in my documentary, Brainwashed America, I think part 1. That was one of the guys from the Frankfurt School. Now, if this worldview has gotten into Alex Karp, and I would certainly have red flags based on where he went to school, or what he worked, the institutes he worked with. I don't know about you, but I would start to get a little nervous about the idea that they're going to know things about people, and then all of a sudden, the first folks being drafted happen to be the, quote, fascists going off to war. Can you see where this could be politicized?
It's already being politicized, I think, unfortunately. When you consider what Palantir has done, for instance, with this targeting software, it's been used in Ukraine. It was used in Gaza as well, and probably maybe in South America, Venezuela, possibly. So they're harvesting data all over the place. They're not the collectors, but they're harvesting data, social media posts, geospatial intelligence sort of things. They can buy it from other companies. They're combining that all to target people for extinction. or some other purpose. This is the same, this is absolutely the same philosophy that would be used to target individuals from any class of people. And if a crosshair is put on a certain group of people, they'll know everyone before the day's out, before the hour's out, probably. So yes, when you consider all the data that's been collected, now all of the government data is being ushered into them to be analyzed, and they say we're just analyzing the existing data. You know, we don't collect it from, we don't ask your permission to get it. You've already given that, so we just take the publicly available information and we make sense of it. Oh, really? Well, okay, so you make sense of it for what purpose? To turn it around and control the things from which it was collected in the first place. This is the rule of data. This is truism. Data is always collected in order to massage it and turn it around to manage the objects from which it was collected in the first place. They're masters of it at this point. Absolute masters. You talk about the science of social engineering. I've talked about that forever, in relation to technocracy. They led with this in their definition in 1937. We're the science of social engineering. We see it all over the place now. Alex Karp, he wouldn't probably call himself a technocrat. I'll do it. He's an arch technocrat at this point. But here's a guy who's just in love with data, even if he doesn't collect it himself, but using that data to become the master manipulator of psychological operations. That's really disturbing. Totally
Indeed.
Disturbing.
Let's look at some of their 22 points right off their own Twitter feed. I won't go through all of them, but a couple of them are instructive. All right, Silicon Valley owes a moral debt to the country that made its rise possible. Okay, so they want to get involved in give back. All right, whatever. We must rebel against the tyranny of the apps. Our iPhone, our greatest creative. Is the iPhone our greatest creative, if not crowning achievement as a civilization? The object has changed our lives, but it may also now be limiting and constraining our sense of the possible. Okay, some of these points are like, I don't know, I guess they're filling up words. I don't know. 3, free email is not enough. Well, by the way, I think some of the email maybe has been used in the algorithms and in harvesting data. So don't tell me it's free. What's the old saying, Patrick? Nothing in life is free.
That's right.
Is the email really been free? I think some companies are sucking up all your emails. Are they not? I know the government. I've been told by former government officials in intelligence arena, they suck up all our emails. So don't tell me giving free email, that's not enough. We need to be involved in more. Yeah, right. Let's have the people that have been sucking up our private data in the name of free emails more power and access, right?
That's right.
4.
Oxymoron.
The limits of soft power of soaring rhetoric alone have been exposed. All right. The ability of free and democratic societies to prevail requires something more than moral appeal. It requires hard power, and power in the century will be built on software. What does that even mean? They want hard power.
Look, this is a reflection of Curtis Yarvin, for sure, with his dark enlightenment philosophy.
So you're bothered by that wording as well. It requires hard
absolutely.
power.
Absolutely. What Curtis Yarvin, remember, Curtis Yarvin was called by Peter Thiel as being his house philosopher. So this is right in Peter Thiel's wheelhouse, because he loves the philosophy stuff. Well, he's not going to have somebody working for him who's at odds with his house philosopher, for sure. You can see this. This is exactly what Yarvin said. We have to exercise something different. We have to have a monarch. We have to have a iron-fisted CEO to run everything, like a startup company. and turn all assets of the society over to them to manage everything for all the people. This is absolutely dystopian.
Yeah.
This is exactly what we thought. The hard power.
And then catch this, Patrick. Hard power, comma, and hard power in this century will be built on software. I mean, where do we see hard power and hard power built on software? Hello, China, Xi Jinping. Social credit scores, no getting on the bus, no travel, no job. Again, I warned about that in my book in 1995, where every child in China is given a dangan that's opened on them when they enter school, and their hiring, firing, and job promotions are all based on review of an applicant's dangan. That was from a New York Times International piece, and it's in my book in 1995. And I warned that with computers, and I have a whole chapter on that called Computers, the Information Givers, chapter 6, I warned we're headed towards social credit scores in 1995. And now we know what China does fully, right? And it's instant. You jaywalk, you got a ticket, and the money's out of your account before you get to the other side of the street. And if you think I'm joking, folks, go look it up. And now we got these guys wanting to use hard power to somehow maintain a free and democratic society. Now, again, you use the word oxymoron. Is that not an oxymoron? We want the ability of free and democratic societies to prevail. It needs to be more than a moral appeal. So therefore, we need hard power, and it needs to be tied into software. That's why I'm telling you, when this guy says, we're concerned about woke ideology and DEI. Really? When you have a background tied to groups and individuals that are connected back to the Frankfurt School? That's where we got the idea of cultural Marxism. And I don't buy it. I don't buy what you're saying at all. Because you just said you want free societies, but to have a free society, we need hard power, and the hard power needs to be built on software. So you think I'm going to buy your claptrap that you want to get rid of DEI and woke ideologies? I don't buy it for 1 minute. Do you, Patrick?
No, I don't. Absolutely not. Yeah. This is, he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth. He's obviously, he wants to make it palatable to the public, but people are seeing through, I think, what he's talking about at this point. Okay, so who will be at the top of the software world to exercise hard power? Who are the leaders now? Sam Altman, maybe. Maybe the head of Google, maybe Eric Schmidt, the former chairman of Google. How about Peter Thiel? How about Michael Kratsius or David Sachs? These are all billionaires, by the way. And they're going to be the ones who exercise hard power on society, all based on software. This is very disturbing.
Well, it fits in with what is point 5 in the 22-point plan by Palantir. The question is not whether AI weapons will be built; it's who will build them and for what purpose. Apparently, they want to build them.
Mm-hmm.
They want to build them for military and national security applications. Can I again ask you, who defines the terms? What do you mean by national security applications? Well, we already know that certain Christians, pro-lifers, those who go to Latin Mass, veterans, those interested in Bible prophecy and the border, according to everything from Barack Obama through the Biden administration, these people all may be domestic terrorists. Is that a national security application to track these people? So when you tell me it's for national security, that raises a lot of red flags. One man's national security is another man's dystopian, tyrannical, social credit dictatorship.
Exactly. You might remember that Anthropic just got in trouble with the military recently, and they were put on a list of firms who are a national. No, they said they're a risk for national security and relation to supply chains. Are they? Is Anthropic on the list right now for national security application? Oh boy, what are you going to do when one of the biggest industry giants, when they declare them to be an enemy, and they're going to focus their spook stuff on them?
Well, if you get declared an enemy under terrorism and the Patriot Act, couldn't you just start seizing their assets?
It seems to me that's exactly what you could do. If you had hard power, you can do anything you want at that point.
At this point, who needs the competition, right? You could just start classifying certain people as enemies and taking what they've developed. I'm not saying that's what they would do, but why would you not? If you're just interested in hard power, which is very interesting, because if you go back to Friedrich Nietzsche, who was one of the thought leaders for the Frankfurt School, and it looks like Alex Karp kind of came out of that German Sigmund Freud Institute Frankfurt School model of education. Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the founders of postmodern thought, said we need to spiritualize cruelty. Spiritualize it. It's interesting how many of these guys are interested in religion and spirituality all of a sudden. Have you noticed that? They all have their AI churches or their Silicon Valley churches, and they're all, and you've got Peter Thiel running around doing stuff on the Antichrist. Mm-hmm. So they're already into this religious spiritual language, which I think is very interesting yet concerning. When Friedrich Nietzsche was talking about spiritualizing cruelty, Nietzsche also taught the idea of master morality and slave morality. Master morality and slave morality. And you know who he said would be the best slaves? The Christians. Because they're weak-minded people, he said, who show an affinity and compassion toward the sick and the infirmed, which makes them weak. Because Nietzsche wanted to create a Superman race. And of course, Nietzsche and Darwin was taken by Adolf Hitler for that German Superman that Hitler wanted to build. And so Nietzsche saw Christians with their sympathy toward the weak and the firm and the elderly as weakness. But he believed in a master morality and a slave morality. The one who is controlling society and those being controlled. Again, if you was like, well, where's he get all this from? Go get the book, Grave Influence, 2008. I'm not selling it to you. If you're a Vault member, it's already in the Vault for you as part of your membership at worldviewtube.com/vault. All these quotes are in there. They're all footnoted. They're all documented. So when a guy seems to me, from what we're reading in his bio, come out of that part of Germany and the world and the Sigmund Freud Institute and all he's doing, I'm thinking to myself, master morality, slave morality, one controlling society, the one's being controlled. Huh. And now he wants to sell it to me with double talk. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying what he's selling.
Not me either. Yeah.
Here's the next
point one. Point seven, if a U.S. Marine asks for a better rifle, I can see that happening, possibly. He said we should build it. And the same goes for software, really. So if a Marine asks for better software to kill enemies on the battlefield, is there a moral obligation to companies like Palantir to build it?
And what is the battlefield?
Exactly.
How do you define the battlefield?
I know.
Is the battlefield going to be right here in our country?
Well, it could be, but
is the enemy combatant going to be defined as an American who doesn't stay in the confines of what they want, the government wants?
Yeah, but the parallel here is rifles kill people. That's a hard asset to kill people. Software can kill people as well. They've already proven that. Self-targeting software. And so what he's saying here, he's comparing a better rifle to kill people to better software that will kill people. So if somebody dreams up an idea for better software, just like a new rifle, if people ask it for it, you got to give it to them. This is wrong. This is totally unplugged. Totally.
And number 6 is that national service, universal service.
Yes.
moving away from an all volunteer force. And of course, with this hard power that they were just talking about up top, and hard power built on software, they'll be able to put you into mandatory universal service and duty. Or you'll be turned off. You're going to have no life, no job for you. Remember? Number 8, public servants do not need to be our priest. Any business that compensated its employees in the way that the federal government compensates public servants would struggle to survive. Okay, so what's he saying? We need to pay the government workers, quote, public servants, more money. Hogwash. Have any of you looked at where the wealth of the country resides? A lot of it? Northern Virginia and Maryland outside of Washington, D.C. Look at the Northern Virginia and Maryland area, the suburbs of Maryland and Virginia around Washington, D.C., and look at the average salary of the average government worker or, quote, public servant who's working as a contractor for the government. Don't tell me they're being treated like our priests.
There's a flavor. There's something slipping through here. You see scientism behind this idea. Scientism proposed a priesthood of engineers and scientists. That's exactly what it says. Even the early 1800s, when it was coined by Henri de Saint-Simon, that's exactly what he said. We need a priesthood of scientists and engineers, not politicians and not religious people, scientists. Okay, so if he's saying public servants need not be our priests, who should be our priests then? Well, people like Alex Karp, the technocrats in Washington, D.C., they're better priests for us, and they're compensated. Oh, they're the billionaires as well, right? They got all the money.
But they want to also create government. I think what they want to do is attract the best and brightest minds into the government, paying high salaries so these people will come into the government so they can then have this hard power built on software. But the government hasn't been able to do things effectively to have that kind of regime. The government cannot, look it up again if you would, please, Daniel San. Look up the Daniel San, that's Logan. He's in training by his sensei here, Mr. Miyagi. Right, Logan? He's going to take over one of these days. One day I might give up Friday nights so I can have off and give it to Logan. I'll become Johnny Carson Monday through Thursday. But he's going to look up how much and how long has the government, we did it last week, you might remember, how long has the government worked to rebuild the FAA, to rebuild the Federal Aviation Administration software for landing planes and taking off? How many years and how many billions of dollars? And the last I read, it's still not done. Now, you give this job to Palantir, you give it to any of these other guys, they're going to get it done. They know what they're doing, to their credit. A lot of them are very smart people and good business managers.
It says the full modernization will require $31.5 billion or more, with the Congress approved an initial $12.5 billion to kickstart modernization, often referred to in current DOT announcements.
And how long have they been working on that, Logan?
That announcement was 2025 legislative.
But if you go back, how long have they been looking to upgrade the FAA, the software?
This is to replace 1960s to 1980s technology. So it looks like we're still using the 1960s, 1980s technology.
And they've been trying to replace it, Logan, for 20 years or more. If you can find an article on that, how long they've been doing it, trying and failing over and over. So public servants need not be our priests, meaning we don't need to pay them dirt wages. Any business that compensates its employees in the way the federal government compensates public servants would struggle to survive. So we need to pay these people more. So I think what's going to happen is Palantir and these companies, I believe, will build the software. They will own the software. They will license the software, but they need government workers to maintain it at all the different levels of government agencies but to maintain it and run it and operate it is going to require a higher level than just an average bureaucrat. You're going to have to attract really bright people, but those bright people are not going to go work inside government agencies to be the connection between the private and the public-private partnership. They have a lot of strength on the private side, but they're hurting for people in the public sector who will go in and be the partners to the private side because they say, okay, you're not paying them enough. Well, to you and I, we're looking at what the average American makes. We're thinking you guys are doing pretty good with your Cadillac retirement accounts and contributions or health care and all that kind of thing. But it's not enough still for the private sector people to want to leave to go into government agencies. I think what they're saying here is they need those people in both the public and the private sector. They can't treat them like priests who don't get paid very well. I think that's what they're saying. Do you agree?
That's part of it. We saw this program established under Doge, by the way, where interns were invited from the tech industry, or wannabe interns at least, or tech people. They invited them to come in, serve a stint, a year or 2 years, doing stuff in the government, being trained for high-tech stuff like, analyzing the data and working with the data, stuff like that. And then they would be set free if they wanted to stay on and get a higher salary, possibly. But then if they wanted to go into industry at that point, they could do that as well. So they were set free after 2 years. That was supposed to be like a contractual obligation. That's kind of like the draft, right? Sort of, I guess, like the draft. So I don't know how many people took up on it, but it was a thing. I saw it in black and white, and they were busy interviewing people at that point to get involved. And the ostensible purpose initially was to fund the Doge operations, which, by the way, is still going on today. They said they disbanded Doge, but it's still going on at all the agencies. So these young people are working. They're getting prowess in whatever field they're working in, and they'll be the leaders of tomorrow. Apparently.
Number 9, we should show far more grace towards those who have subjected themselves to the public life. What they're saying is, the public figures get attacked. We don't show them a lot of tolerance and grace. If we don't correct that, we may end up being left, they say, with a cast of characters at the helm we grow to regret. So somehow the country has to be nicer to the publicly elected officials. I don't even know why that's in here, but there you go.
Well, hey, remember RAGE, R-A-G-E? That was Curtis Yarvin's philosophy, retire all government employees. Doge came in and just wiped out a bunch of people from all agencies, and they just, basically booted them from the job. These are seasoned people, and they were in rank and had, careers going and stuff. They just basically threw them out. How about grace for those people? Huh? Sorry.
Number 11, our society has grown too eager to hasten and is often gleeful at the demise of its enemies. The vanquishing of an opponent is a moment to pause, not rejoice. Well, that's really weird. Coming from a group that, according to the book we just read, if you didn't have the stomach for killing terrorists, then you don't get hired. And from a company that's talking about the need for hard power built on software, now all of a sudden, you want to be careful not to be, gleeful over the demise of your enemies. I'm not buying it. Some of these talking points in here, it's nothing, in my opinion, but psychological manipulation. Number 12, the atomic age is ending. One age of deterrence, the atomic age is ending, and a new era of deterrence built on AI is set to begin. Okay, what does that even mean? I'll tell you what I think. You tell me, Patrick. There used to be the atomic age, right? Mutually assured destruction. Peace through strength, right? Okay, so now we're past that. Now the new era of deterrence is going to be built on AI. You think the atomic weapon was bad? You ain't seen nothing as far as what we can release on you when it comes to AI, with drones and robots and shutting down infrastructures. This is the new weapon. That's what I'm hearing. Far more powerful than the atomic weapon. Is that what I just read?
I think you can read it that way for sure, but the atomic bomb and all the stuff that went along with it, it didn't regulate itself. It was regulated by people, by treaty, and restraint. So to say, well, the age of somehow deterrence is a product of the atomic age itself, it wasn't. It was people that did that. Now AI is going to do that. This is how I would read that. You said, well, the new deterrence will be based on AI. That's a whole different thing, because AI has no compassion, no reasonability, no grace for sure, and maybe it can reason through some things, but when it comes to the nuclear codes, really, you want an AI to have its finger on that kind of destructive power? I don't think so.
Number 13, no other country in the history of the world has advanced progressive values more than this one. Okay, why would we celebrate advancing progressive values anyway? Progressive, look, that's cultural Marxism, that's socialism, that's redistribution, that's liberalism. Why would we don't want to advance those values anyway?
I know that this guy is a total progressive. There's no other way to classify him as a total progressive. His philosophy goes back, I'm sure, into the 1800s, with all the stuff that happened back then in the 1900s as well. This guy is unplugged from anything conservative, anything that's not progressive. You know, all this science stuff has been done in the name of progressivism. Well, we have to be progressive. In other words, we have to move everything forward all the time. Don't worry about the consequences. Just drive it forward, they say. Doesn't matter what ideas we have, technology, the uses of technology, anything goes with progressivism. It's one of the most destructive philosophies in the history of the world.
Now look at number 14. American power has made possible an extraordinarily long peace. Too many have forgotten or perhaps taken for granted that nearly a century of some version of peace has prevailed in the world without a great power military conflict. At least 3 generations, billions of people and their children and now grandchildren have never known a world war. Okay, so what is he trying to say? That if we implement AI in these guys, we can bring world peace? Wait a minute. If you give me the power to have hard power built on software, then we can bring you global peace. Peace and safety, peace and safety. Why am I hearing that? A biblical phrase when they say peace and safety, right?
Yep.
Now, wait a minute. If we're going to have peace and safety, and if haven't had any kind of military conflict for at least 3 generations, they say, I don't know, I guess they're not, I mean, Vietnam, that ended in the early 70s. So that's not really 3 generations, is it?
No.
But if they're going to make it such an era of peace, why do we need to have a mandatory draft? Isn't this contradictory?
Seems to be, yeah.
15, the post-war neutering of Germany and Japan must be undone. Defanging of Germany was an overcorrection, which Europe is now paying a heavy price. A similar and heavy theatrical commitment to Japanese pacifism will, if maintained, also threaten to shift the balance of power in Asia. Now, that's interesting because apparently what I'm reading, if I read between the lines here, Patrick, is the need to make all countries pretty much equal, right?
Maybe he's an apologist for what happened in Germany in the first place. Germany has.
He's half Jewish, by the way. His father's Jewish.
I know.
16. We should applaud those who attempt to build where the market has failed to act. The culture almost snickers at Musk's interest in grand narrative, as if billionaires ought to simply stay in their lane of enriching themselves. Any curiosity or genuine interest in the value of what he has created is essentially dismissed or perhaps lurks from beneath a thinly veiled scorn. All right. 17. Silicon Valley must play a role in addressing violent crime. Okay, here we go, guys. This is another connection point. Think pre-crime. Think Minority Report. We've already been told that if we want peace, we can have peace. If we really understand what needs to happen to maintain a free society, we have to have hard power, and hard power built on software. And we have to have some people from the government come in who are getting paid big money, so they'll come into the government from the private sector. But we're going to have to get Silicon Valley involved in addressing the violent crime. Many politicians across the United States have essentially shrugged when it comes to violent crime, abandoning any serious efforts to address the problem or take on any risk with their constituencies or donors, and coming up with solutions and experiments in what should be a desperate bid to save lives. All right. How is this not a camera on every corner, right? This is absolute control. You're bringing out a book. What do you got?
Well, I'm looking at my chapter on the players. I'm looking forward to number 19 here, but just
what's the book?
This is our book, Final Betrayal. Well, it's backwards. Sorry.
All right, there we go.
Yep. Chapter 11, the players. We expose these people for what they were. Most of them are billionaires. And the caution, number 19 says, the caution in public life that we unwittingly encouraged is corrosive. And number 18 as well, the ruthless exposure of the private lives of public figures. Well, I guess I'm going to be on the list then, as one who wants to expose them.
All right, let's go to 18, because this seems to be with what we were talking about, right?
Yes, exactly.
The ruthless exposure of the private lives of public figures drives far too much talent away from the government service. Well, isn't this what we were just saying a while ago?
Yeah.
Boo-hoo-hoo. We don't pay them enough. We don't have enough grace for them. And this is like now the third point. Out of 22 points, we've now got the third point coming back to how we have to treat public servants. I mean, that's a pretty high emphasis. Out of 22 points, 3 of them deal directly with what we need to do to have more people in the government arena. And one of them is stop being so ruthless to them. The public arena and the shallow and petty assaults against those who dare to do something other than enrich themselves has become so unforgiving that the republic is left with a significant roster of intellectual empty vessels whose ambition would forgive if there were any genuine belief structure lurking within.
What does that mean anyway?
Ineffective, ineffectual. So in other words, isn't that what he's saying? Mm-hmm. We don't have the talent we need in the government sector.
Yes.
Because you guys aren't treating these people well. You're not showing them enough grace and tolerance. You're ruthless, and you're not paying them good enough. But we've got to fill up the government bureaucrats, their offices, with a new breed of man, a new kind of man. This isn't your grandfather's bureaucrat we need. But you're going to have to pay them more, treat them better, and stay out of their private lives, or they're not coming over. And we need to put those kind of people in this bureaucracy that we're building. I mean, how else can you interpret this, Patrick?
That's it. Exactly.
19. The caution in public life that we unwittingly encourage is coercive. Those who say nothing wrong often say nothing much at all.
You see the dialectic in this so many of these statements. This is just opposite.
Yep. All right, let's go to 19. Or 20. The pervasive intolerance of religious belief in certain circles must be resisted. Okay, here we go. Thank you. We've already told you before we got to 20. And I just saw these guys minutes before I started interviewing Patrick. I had these literally minutes. I did a story on it for the Worldview Report, but I hadn't had time today to go through all 22 of them. I'm reading them for the first time about 5 minutes before we went on the air. And here we are to number 20, and it fits with what we've been saying. They're going to use this hard-powered software to target the people they don't like, they don't agree with. Number 20, the pervasive intolerance of religious belief in certain circles must be resisted. The elite's intolerance of religious belief is perhaps one of the most telling signs that his political project constitutes a less open intellectual movement than many within it would claim. All right. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying number 20, that the pervasive intolerance of religious belief in certain circles must be resisted.
Wait a minute. What are the certain circles?
Yes.
Is he talking about all the elite circles, or is it certain circles? It seems to me he has somebody in mind.
Well, what if it's the religious belief that we're intolerant of? Technocracy, transhumanism, humanism, cosmic humanism. What if it's us that are seen as the ones that are being intolerant of their religious belief?
There you go.
You see how they're framing this? You're right when you say the dialectic. I think these are words that sound like they're for the average person in free speech and freedom of religion. But when you read them and know this is how you would write a plan if you wanted to deceive people, how do we know this isn't the religious beliefs that we're critical of as Christians? Right?
Yes. Exactly. Wow.
21. Some cultures have produced vital advances. Others remain dysfunctional and regressive. All cultures are now equal. Well, no, they're not.
No, they're not.
I don't know where he got that idea anyway. The culture of Christians and Christian America or Christian Americans, or even non-Christian Americans who are patriotic and believe in absolute truths, is not equal to the culture of Islam and the Islamists having sex with goats, or they believe in incest, or marrying a 6-year-old and consummating at 9 Islam. That is not the same culture. So why would anyone say all cultures are now equal? Criticism and value judgments are forbidden. Yet this new dogma glosses over the fact that certain cultures and indeed subcultures have produced wonders. Others have proven middling and worse, regressive and harmful. What's he trying to say here, Patrick?
Seems to me he is expressing the idea of accelerationism a little bit, where they're setting themselves up to have progress and acceleration moving forward. In other words, taking away the regressive and harmful elements of society, and we'll all live happily ever after at the funny farm.
Yeah, and I want to make sure I'm getting this right. All cultures are now equal. Is he saying that's a bad thing? Criticism and value judgments are forbidden. Yet this dogma glosses over the fact that certain cultures and indeed subcultures have produced wonders. Others have proven middling and worse, regressive and harmful. Okay, so maybe he's not saying they're all equal. Maybe he's saying The idea that we say all cultures are now equal is a problem. That criticism and value judgments being forbidden is not a good thing. Because I'm trying to be intellectually honest here in what I'm reading. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Maybe what he's saying is they want the right to decide which cultures are effective and produce and move society forward and which ones are regressive and harmful. Now, if I read it that way, I've offered two options, option 1 and option 2. Now that I'm thinking about it more, I'm going with option 2. They want the option to decide which cultures are good and which are bad, which produce wonders and which one are regressive. Well, if they decide the Christian biblical worldview culture is regressive?
Mm-hmm. Clearly. In their mind, it already is.
And I hope the audience understands in this exercise, we're willing to look at it and say they either mean this or this. And I just read something and then I just corrected my view because I am seriously trying to figure out what they believe. I think my second opinion is the one they're going for. They're going to be the arbiters of what culture and values are advancing society, particularly as many of them are into spiritual evolution, Darwinian evolution, and then spiritual evolution as we spiritually evolve up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what cultures are holding us back?
Yeah.
What values are holding us back, Patrick? Those who want to define marriage as one man and one woman? And isn't it interesting that a lot of these people, I don't know where Alex Karp's coming from, but some of these guys in this world are homosexuals, right?
Totally. Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
So.
Finally, and last, 22, we must resist the shallow temptation of a vacant and hollow pluralism. A vacant and hollow pluralism. We in America and more broadly the West have for the past half century resisted defining national cultures in the name of inexclusivity, but inclusion into what? Question mark.
That's a big question.
What is he trying to say there, in your opinion, Patrick?
Wow. Well, number one, he's taken a shot at pluralism. That's the blending together of all the philosophies. You know, everybody has to get along and have their own opinion. It's that, you know, your truth is your truth, that sort of thing. So he says that the shallow temptation of a vacant and hollow pluralism. In other words, a shallow view of pluralism or expression is to be avoided. And we've had in the past half century, he said there's 50 years, I guess, resisted defining national cultures in the name of inclusivity. Isn't this kind of what the United Nations has said all these years, talking about inclusion? Everybody has to be included. But he's saying the question is, but inclusion into what? Has he answered the question in the first 21 statements?
In other words, if we look at the definition of inclusivity, okay, I looked it up just to make sure we're all on the same page. The practice or policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized, such as those having physical or intellectual disabilities or belonging to other minority groups. The practice or policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. Now we go back to what he's saying, and that is we have for the past half century resisted defining national cultures in the name of inexclusivity. So in other words, is he saying we need to go ahead and set some boundaries and some rules and definitions of who we're going to include and who we're not going to include?
It seems that way.
What we're going to accept, what we're not going to accept?
It seems that way.
And then how would you do that and enforce that? You go back to your hard power with hard software and social credit scores, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everybody has a value in the social credit system. And your value might be associated with the profession that you have. Maybe your salary, maybe your advancement over a period of time, maybe maybe you're just rich, you don't have any skills, but you're rich, you're going to be valuable to society. But if you're not those things, if you don't have you're a ditch digger or a cotton picker or whatever, and you don't have much, or you're invalid, and you got hurt on a job and now you can't work at all, you're a drain on society. This is very, very shallow thinking, and I need to relate this back, I think, to the Frankfurt School as well, critical theory. They had a lot of crazy ideas back in that day, and I'm just thinking of some people who have talked about them in recent years. But Karp is just, he's off the reservation at this point, in my opinion.
Very
this
scary.
is the guy that, hey, this is the guy that we wanted to have run all over all of the surveillance software in the world. The governments are snapping it up like crazy at this point.
Patrick Wood, Technocracy.news, Technocracy.news. Tell us about your new book and where they can get your brand new book, Patrick.
Well, you bet. I know it's going to be reversed here, but you get a picture of it. I guess this is the new economics of technocracy. You will own nothing. This blows the lid off of everything I've said for the last 15 years. Plus, we've figured out now how you are going to own nothing in the end. If they have their way, I've cracked it wide open. This builds, by the way, on this book here that we wrote last year. And Courtney did a great job of helping me decipher what was going on last year. But since November, when we published this book, holy mackerel, the whole new field just was exposed. And I have to write this book. I didn't even want to write another book, honestly. But some things you just have to take it by the horns, go for it.
Absolutely.
This is how this book came about, that you will own nothing.
Patrick Wood at Technocracy.news. You can order it. Technocracy.news. As always, thank you, Patrick.
You bet. Anytime.
We'll be right back with Annie Cyrus. Don't go away. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator, so I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224. Joining me now is Annie Cyrus for a quick update. Where are we at with this peace plan? Joining me is Annie Cyrus. Annie, haven't had you on in a while, but wanted to get you back. Where are we at, my friend?
Wait, I thought you were bringing the champagne. We won.
Is that what we're being told now? We won?
Well, we've been told we won since they won. But no, as we predicted, President Trump decided to expand or extend the ceasefire with Iran. But if you read his post, there is no deadline anymore, Brannon.
Okay, I'm going to go to his post. When was the last time he posted? I can't keep up. He's pretty prolific. When was the last time he posted?
Well, the one we want to look for, I want to say it was around 4 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay.
But yes.
All right, here we go. Here it is, I think. Is this the one you're talking about? Based on the fact the government of Iran is seriously fractured?
Yes.
And not unexpectedly, and not unexpectedly so. And upon the request of Field Marshal Azman Manur and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan, we have been asked to hold our attack on the country of Iran until such a time as the leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal. I have therefore directed our military to continue the blockade and in all other respects remain ready and able, and will therefore extend the ceasefire until such time as the proposal is submitted and discussions are concluded one way or the other. How long is this going to go on?
If you remember the exact sentence I used the last time I was on your show, I said he's going to turn this into a Gaza situation. Ceasefire, ceasefire, attack, ceasefire, attack, ceasefire, attack. But again, when you read it, there is no deadline. Originally, it was 2 weeks. Now, until such a time when the Iran regime can put together a unified proposal. When it originally came out, and I was like, well, okay, I guess war is over. This is his way of ending the war without having to face failure. It was like, here we go again. She's picking on Trump again. Do you see any other reason he would post that? If it was, okay, we're giving him another 10 days, another 7 days, another 7 years. When you put it that way, and again, I go back to since when Prime Minister of Pakistan dictates terms to us. But fine, that's a topic for another day, another book probably. But based on their request, we literally just told Iran's regime, go build back up and have fun. Do you read anything else out of this, Brandon? Because I might be very wrong. I'm very biased.
I just think that we're, like you said, kicking the can down the road. We're giving the Prime Minister of Pakistan, who aren't they really, really friendly with Iran?
They're buddies. They're brothers. They refer every letter written between Prime Minister of Pakistan and President of Iran starts with, to my brother, to my brother. I purposely published a welcome video of the Iran team to Pakistan because I wanted people to see, like, the hug is reassurances. And again, the person they call the father of their nuclear is the man who went to Iran and set up everything for them. They will share that much of alliance. And by the way, while this open-ended ceasefire continues, we're also going for next round of negotiations. Here in a few hours, it's going to start. But here's the problem. Pakistan announced that it's happening. U.S. media reported that Kushner and Witkoff are on their way. Vance is staying behind. Iran said, we're not going. None of our officials are saying anything about it. Trump, Vance, nobody's talking about it. So we don't know if in few hours in Pakistan, there's a second round of negotiations. If there is a time to put a new proposal together, then why are we going in few hours to talk to them? And I don't think any of it is to confuse the regime of Iran. Let me tell you, this is the first time I'm saying this on air. I have said it on private phone calls to a few friends. This is the first time I'm saying it on air. If you think we have shown a strength, and if you think anyone in that group on the other side of Earth is scared of us, last Friday morning prayer in Iran, the Friday prayer of city of Qom, sat there, giggled, and said, we have plenty to survive another 58 days, and then giggled again. That's how much they're taking us serious. That's how much they're scared of us. And that's how much they know why Trump gave them the first ceasefire. 58 days referring to the 60 days he limits, Congress limits him to continue.
What secrets do they have up their sleeve? They implied they have something else they could bring out. Is it bluster, or do they have something that the Trump administration knows about and has got them concerned?
My best guess is either Pakistan has given them a few of their nuclear weapon, or China has given them what they need, technology they need to pretty much attack the entire Gulf states power grid, or both, because they're not looking scared at all. I don't like to sit here and say this, but they're looking pretty confident right now, including the fact that, remember, well, I shouldn't say remember, I was on your show yesterday. Yesterday, as our side of things was countdown to ceasefire, end of ceasefire, Trump himself yesterday said there is no intention of expanding the ceasefire. On their end, they were talking about how tomorrow is business as usual because we know already he's not going to come attack us. That's how much they're bragging at this point. They send the Iranian, what do you call it in English? People who go to Mecca for their annual Hajj of Islamic tradition, pilgrims.
Mm-hmm. Pilgrimage. What is it, Logan? Pilgrimage. No.
Pilgrimage.
Pilgrimage. Thank you. Why is that so hard for us tonight?
Don't ask me to repeat that because I'm not going to even attempt. But point is, how much everything is set. Until a few days ago, supposedly Saudi Arabia was on the side of us, the US, and we're going to retaliate. Iran was attacking Saudi Arabia. And yesterday, the first batch got on a plane signed by National Council and the Supreme Court saying, absolutely, it's your obligation. It's time. You got to go. Go do your Hajj, pray for us too, and done.
Where are we at with the Strait? Is it open? Is it closed?
I love the video you sent me, by the way.
It's in a video of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck pulling down
slot. It's closed.
The Strait is open. The Strait is closed. The Strait is open. The Strait is closed. They were arguing about it.
Well, it was never closed. It was never open. And we're still right where we were. As Trump mentioned on his official post, we're going to keep the blockade. But technically, they're the one who've been shooting at us. We're the one, yelling warning. But business is as usual, meaning it's not fully closed by Iran. It's not fully conquered by U.S. either.
By the way,
and
we have the...
it's going to stay that way.
One of the EU leaders, European Union leaders, listen to what she's saying about food rationing. Here we go.
It's not been turned off.
Oh, hang on. We got audio. It means that something open that shouldn't be open. And need to close. Let's do that. And that. Is it stopped? Oh, I knew exactly what it was. Here we go. All right. Here we go.
A third of the fertilizers is shipped through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, that is also at risk. And it matters particularly in the southern hemisphere, where the planting and therefore the fertilizers is badly needed now. I'm not saying that just out of interest for agriculture. Don't forget, I was Minister of Agriculture in France for a month and a half. But because it matters to me as a central banker now. Because if the price of food increases significantly, it is not going to just be the price of food, it is going to be inflation expectations. Because we know that people are particularly attentive to two things: the price of food, processed and unprocessed, and the price of gas at the petrol station. So here are three indirect consequences of what's happening in the energy world. So if the disruption persists long enough, the adjustment shifts from prices, which we are putting up with now, to possibly rationing, with very different economic consequences.
Okay, rationing.
Higher prices are primarily inflationary. Shortages hit output directly and are worse for growth. Overall, there have been so far limited signs of supply chain disruption, both globally and in the euro area. But local tensions are visible. Jet fuel prices have roughly doubled since the outbreak of the conflict, and rationing has been imposed at some individual airports in Europe since early April. And I'm not talking about what's happening in the rest of the world. I'm just back from the IMF and the World Bank spring meetings, like many of you, and you might have bumped into colleagues from Asia, in particular some of the low-income countries or emerging market economies, that are taking a much more severe hit than us and are moving into rationing.
All right, rationing, food shortages, fertilizer disruption. She's the, I guess, the head of the European Central Bank. I'm not shocked by this, Annie. I didn't know how it would come, but I believed for a long time that food rationing and food shortages is by design. I've been talking about that for so long. And of course, we sell freeze-dried food. You can buy it from us. You can buy it from somebody else. That's up to you. You'll find it at worldviewstore.com. But if you have the wherewithal, you should have a minimum, I think, of 6 months supply, but probably a year or more, and then enough for bartering with. Because I believe it's got a 25-year shelf life. And I think, for most of us, that's going to be sufficient. If not, then, right before it starts, maybe a couple of years before that date runs out, donate it to a charity, take the tax deduction and buy more. But I believe the elite want food rationing. I believe I've showed the paper, this is in my library down there, from the early 70s by Kissinger, the Kissinger report on using food to control people, populations, and countries. So never let a good crisis go to waste is all I'm adding in here, Annie.
You're absolutely right. And yes, you've been talking about it for a long time. And forgive me as I'll say this, but I called it from day one, February 28th. I called it all the way to today, and I called it all the way to FIFA World Cup. I have called it all the way to end of December after the midterm and what happens to 2027. Not because I'm a prophet. I've read this book too many times from both authors, IRGC and American Policy. But since she was so very melodramatic on delivering the speech, which I don't understand why she would do, there's an urgency in that message. But anyway, she decided to go French style, I guess. But let's bring up some other side of this food shortage which we're addressing. Brian and I have personally spoken, translated messages I have personally received from people inside Iran who at this point are saying, finish it or leave. This morning I spoke to my own friend inside Iran. We only could talk for 6 minutes because that's all she could afford on VPN to connect. And within that 6 minutes, what she told me is in her own household, it is her husband, they have 2 kids, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. And she said for last 2 days, her and her husband had to cut down to 1 portion a day, bread and egg food, so they can continue feeding their kids. They're not below poverty line in Iran. They're okay. They're somewhat average. And she was pointing out, imagine those who are not average. They're probably already starving. I'm still waiting for any European countries, American students, any UN, any, humanitarian. Where are the humanitarian aids for Iranian people during this war? Why don't we send them, 4 blankets, 2 cans of water? Can we do that? No, we shouldn't, because we're busy screaming Lebanon now with the new hashtag trending on social media. Lebanon is the new Gaza. But nobody's noticing that the longer we are dragging our feet in there, which, by the way, is for any of your audience who might be new to me, maybe I haven't proven myself to them yet, go back all the way back to January of this year. I did a Substack. I predicted 3 possible outcomes out of the uprising back then. And my number 2 prediction was US will get involved, hijack this revolution, and kill the momentum people have gained. I think we're there already. So yes, this is by design, including the part that we decided to get involved and then be the big boss with absolutely no knowledge. I promise you, nobody in Trump administration can even put a map of Iran in front of them and point 5 things on it. And we're giving the best PR to IRGC. Here in about a week or two, they're going to start pushing out pictures of starved Iranians on the streets, because it is happening. And they're going to start a new propaganda. Not against Trump, against Israel.
Of course.
So here goes the other alliance that we're so proud of. Everything we're doing, and I said this on my show yesterday, Brian, I said, I get everybody loves to say, we're facing this because of Obama, we face it because of Biden, we face it because of Bush, we face it because of Thomas Jefferson. But when Trump decided, from 12 Days War last year, when he decided to do what he did back then and what he's doing today, most of the events that are coming up that are going to be disastrous for America and Americans were set in place. He was aware of midterm. He was aware of World Cup. He was aware of what's happening in Iran. And he was very well aware Israel had a perfect plan. So nothing we face today and nothing we're going to face during June and July, nor the loss of World Cup, has anything to do with Thomas Jefferson, Lincoln, Bush, Biden, or Obama. It has everything to do with one man making a decision, being aware of upcoming events to boost his ego and his resume over anybody and everybody else, including Americans.
All right, so tell me how you think this ends.
This won't end. That's my point.
So how long would this be carried out for 2026?
Which part? The continuing the ceasefire and talking?
Yes.
Depends on what he has for breakfast.
What do you think?
But it will continue. My point is, every other Wednesday, I have Barry Newsbaum on my show because he gets inside information from Israel. 2 of his kids are part of ID. They're in frontline fighting. He brings the information. I bring my information. And he texted me yesterday. It's like, by Wednesday, where do you think we are to discuss things? I said, we dropped 2 bombs, had the next ceasefire, and in the middle of negotiation. He said, I don't think it's going to go that fast. I'm like, it will. We're going to see the pattern. But as far as end to this situation, which I call it making a mess out of another good opportunity, this is going to keep going into mid-2027. There will be a repeat of pattern. We're going to see this repeat of pattern, because if you think IRGC or Iran's regime is going to bow down after what they witnessed in the last 8 weeks, they're not going to do that.
So what you're saying is get used to this, on again, off again, negotiating, maybe a little strike here, a little strike there, back to negotiating. This will continue, you think, through 2026 into 2027?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we will face the consequences here, including inflation, including where last weekend, every other weekend, I do my grocery shopping. And last weekend, Brian, I paid $8.37 for 1 pound of ground beef.
Closing comment or question for you here. Why am I getting rumblings? And I don't know if they're legit, but some people are talking about some kind of big black swan type event that apparently some of the even power elite or whatever are worried about and preparing for 2027. Do you believe that, or is that just,
For 2027?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any signs that would connect me to 2027. I do see signs connecting me to 2028, early summer.
Tell me why.
Well, a few reasons. First of all, 2028 is, again,
Election
the major
year.
time, election year. Also, that is about a year or so after the green wave of midterm has settled in, because they need that. They need, green wave being all the Muslims and Muslim Marxists who are running for midterm, who are going to actually win and take offices, and they're sworn in January 2027. By early summer of 2028, they already made their policy changes and shifts, like turning City Hall into some Ramadan iftar scenario like Mamdani. That would be my pointing dots or connecting dots to 2028.
Okay.
Now, I still stand by, be aware of 2026 World Cup.
For terrorist attack.
Not just terrorist attack, but placement for the 2028. I'm doing series because it's so much, I can't fit it in one show or one Substack. But if we just think about the connection of the borders, Brennan, you have covered on your show how many IRGC members are in Canada. I think the article you put out was like 1,100, something like that. And then we have the proof. This one is by our own government documentation, and you have had people like Todd Bensman on to talk about the connection between IRGC and cartel. Now, both of those countries are co-hosting with us. Over 3.2 million people are traveling between these two borders within a gap of 30 days for 14 times the games that are outside of America going back and forth. And there's no way we can make sure cartel did not sweep someone out for an IRGC member, nor can we tell Saeed from England who got a visa and came in with a British passport is not kidnapped in Canada and replaced by the next Saeed who's IRGC. That is legit. I am not paranoid. I am not.
So you think the probability for a terrorist attack during the games is kind of high or moderate? Moderate or high?
No, that's what going back my 2028, they're going to use this opportunity to put their soldiers in place, to bring the numbers and the people and the weapons and all of that into the country.
So they're going to use all of this traffic and overloading the system and surveillance and everybody's attention to move in more troops.
Exactly.
And then they won't pull the trigger on that probably till 2028.
That is where, at least that's where my dots are going.
Okay.
They're going to keep the World Cup to bare minimum of noise. Again, they can't risk losing midterm, so they're not going to attack them. They're not going to be Allahu Akbar screaming, no, before midterm. But
that's the red-green axis, the green being the Islamist, the red being the Marxist. That's their playbook. So they're going to try to play nice between now and after the midterms.
But they're going to have a perfect 45 days window of opportunity to move. Again, I don't know if you have covered Shamim, the Iranian woman in LA who's facing charges of, weapon smuggling. That 45 days, that's where soldiers, weapons, plans, money, all of that could easily be transported into America. And trust me, as we will miss it. We don't even have the manpower nor the unity inside our federal government to handle this the way it should be handled. So that's where I'm concerned. They're going to take that time to get in place.
Yeah. Well, you just watch. If we have a massive terrorist attack in America, all of the groups, I think, Palantir, et cetera, they're all ready to go with biometrics, data tracking, CBDC. You watch the American people, unfortunately, many of them will roll over and accept a totalitarian, dystopian type state of surveillance for peace and security. Agreed?
100%. And that's the beauty of it. Again,
notice the timing of the technology. Notice the timing of the technology, the building of the data centers, the building of whatever this massive military data center under the White House is. Notice the timing for all this, along with the 22-point plan we just covered with Patrick Wood. Notice the timing of the advancement of all the technology with what could be a coming terrorist attack, 2027, 2028. And wow, wouldn't you know, right after a massive terrorist attack, wouldn't you know, Shazam, the technology is all in place to throw the switch and implement the system. That's remarkable how everything got done just in time, Annie.
And right before the election of 2028, where either a leftist is going to take power or their buddy J.D. Vance. Just a thought.
The Architecture of Jihad, Annie Cyrus, she wrote it. It's available at liveuptofreedom.com, liveuptofreedom.substack.com. As always, thank you, Annie.
My pleasure. Be safe, Brennan.
You too. She's on here every day, 3 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday. We'll be right back after this very short break.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
All right, guys, we're going to have Dr. Lana on. Let me ask this question. How many of you want dementia? How many of you want to lose your memory, cognitive ability? Logan? What was I just talking about, by the way? Just a joke. All right, joining me now is Dr. Lana. Hello, Dr. Lana. Welcome to the broadcast.
Hello.
Thank you for being with us.
It's always a pleasure.
That's what I don't want. Hey, Logan, what was I just talking about 2 minutes ago? I can't remember. Before the commercial break, Logan, who was my guest? Welcome back. Who are you and why are you here? Kind of thing. I don't want that happening. So Melissa today starts lecturing me with love once again on the need for me to move more. She apparently thinks I don't move enough.
Well, your wife is very smart.
Yes, yes, she is. She is. You got that right. So she starts reading me all these reports on the need to move. Here is one. Dementia could begin in your legs, warns a leading neurologist. And she provided for me today a lot of different reports and some programs by different doctors. They're talking about, look, a lot of these people that have dementia, these were sedentary people, okay? And my wife started naming off people that we know that have dementia or Alzheimer's. And she said, and what do all of them have in common, Brandon? I know they didn't move around a lot, did they? So anyway, my wife wants me to be more physically move. I'm like, you know what, sweetheart? I think we have a treadmill, a nice treadmill up in the attic. I bought this treadmill probably back around the year 2000. And it's a really well-made, it's about as heavy as a tank. But I think we got one in the attic. I don't know if it's going to run anymore. But hey, okay, fine. I'll hop on that and walk if that makes you happy. So apparently they're going to have to dig that thing out of the attic and set it up somewhere.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'll broadcast while I'm on the treadmill, Logan.
You should.
Nah, I don't want to do that. I'd sweat. I'd start sweating. I wouldn't even be able to talk, Logan said. Thanks, Logan. Thanks a lot, Logan. I'm not that out of shape. Anywho,
Yes.
I moved several tons of rock last fall. Remember that, Logan? Long as it's not a stair stepper. Yeah, he does make fun of me on stairs. We were going up to we were at the Capitol a year ago this May. And I did come home and get more in shape because I was out of shape. Those stairs at the U.S. Capitol, have you ever been to the U.S. Capitol and walked up the stairs to the next level? And they're like the Rayburn building or the...
We were there in 2018. It was a beautiful, beautiful day. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, well, I don't ride elevators. So Melissa and Logan took the elevator up to the next floor. And the was it the Raymond building, Logan? Rayburn building. What's the other one? The House and the Senate side. Well, we've got footage of it all. But anyway, they're very open. So you can actually watch them get on the elevator downstairs, and then they go up, and they can see this big staircase, half circle going up. I'm carrying some equipment, if you'll remember, Logan, under my arms. And I'm walking up the stairs. About halfway, I stop, panting like a dog. And so the rest, the trip, they're giving me a hard time. Okay, first of all, I was carrying a lot of equipment. It wasn't like it was just me. We did end up walking all over Arlington National Cemetery for 2 days filming. That was I came home in better shape because we walked a ton. So yeah, he won't let me forget the fact I was huffing and puffing walking up those stairs. But I have to remind him I was carrying equipment, Logan. So anywho, where were we? Walking.
Dementia, walking, the legs.
Where were we?
That's
Dementia.
okay.
Yeah,
that's what I'm here for. We're a team. We're a team.
So do you agree with this, that you need to keep strength in your legs, particularly your thighs?
Absolutely. And I'll share with you when I was studying with the amazing Dr. Esselstyn at the Cleveland Clinic, off and on for, gosh, over 6 years, dementia, Alzheimer's, and we would see it on the scans. You would see the brain with the Alzheimer's and the plaque, and then you would see a clear, more normal brain. And vascular health starts from your head to your toes. So runs through your legs, your thighs, your calves, down to your toes. And if you will learn to eat and live and take a diet and lifestyle approach to keeping your blood vessels clearer, as healthy as you can, and there's a way to do it with diet and lifestyle, you can help reduce your risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. And yes, one of the first things, when some of my patients, I have a lot of, busy professional patients over the years, and they're in that sandwich generation. The reason I'm sharing this is, they're taking care of their adult children or children that are still in school, their spouses, they have a career usually, and then they're taking care of their aging parents. And one of the first things they say is, oh my gosh, my dad's legs got so weak, or my mom's legs got weak and they can't really stand very long and they have to sit more. What does that mean? There's something wrong with the muscles in their legs. No, that means heart, cardiovascular issues. And that is blood running through the veins from head to toe. And that, if you will keep moving and keep your legs moving and do even ankle circles. I think I shared before, I worked with an extraordinary trainer who trained Olympic athletes, NFL athletes, professional athletes. And he says, just stand up and sit down, stand up and sit down. Don't use your arms. Be safe, of course, if you can do this. Stand up and sit down 10 times and do that, every couple hours, every time you think about it, stand up and sit down. That is one of the motions that we lose first.
Okay, by the way, let me just stop you right there. So you're saying stand up and sit down, but don't use the table to push yourself up or
Correct.
to sit back down.
You're
Use your
using
own body strength to get up,
Yes.
get down. And if you can get up and get down on your own power 2 or 3 times in a matter of, say, 60 seconds,
right,
you're doing pretty good, right?
Right. That is leg strength, and that's cardiovascular health. And people don't relate the brain, Alzheimer's, dementia, to your heart. And it is vascular. Yes, there's other types, of that disease, but mainly people get what's called vascular dementia, meaning the vessels in their brain gets clogged. And in the main, what do you think clogs it? Food, too much animal protein, all the dairy, the cheeses, the meat. And you all know me by now. I've been on here for quite some time. Everything I'm sharing is based on gold standard science. It's not my opinion. It's not my take on something. I was trained by some of the foremost medical doctors and research scientists in the world. I give all glory to Jesus for my rare education. And I'm just passing it forward to you, saying, if you can focus on a whole food, plant-based diet, you don't have to be a vegan unless your doctor has you on a vegan diet for a very specific reason. But in the main, just cut back on all the meat and the fats and the oils and the butters and the sour cream and the cheeses. The dairy should go away and focus on organic beef, organic chicken a few times a week, whole fruits, whole vegetables, grab some organic rice, and you can get organic beans in a can in the store and boil them for a good half hour and then eat them cold or eat them warm, and focus on more plants. I'll tell you, the healthiest, I've said this before, Brandon, but the healthiest population on the planet are the Okinawans in Japan, specifically the Okinawan women from ages 17 to 36. And 67% of the Okinawan diet in Japan, most people say, oh, it's fish. They eat a lot of fish. Wrong. Not correct. They eat a lot of rice. Well, they eat rice, but 67% of their diet is the sweet potato. Healthiest food on the planet. If you can keep your legs moving and eat a plant-centered diet and get rid of the dairy and back down on the animal protein, move your body, drink clean water. And you and I always talk. I use very, very few things in my practice, We die without glutathione. The gadotana is God's food getting in your cells. And the super aminos are a way to get healthy protein in your muscles in minutes, but it's pre-digested non-soy plant protein. So that means it's not damaging your kidneys and your blood vessels like too much animal protein does. We can break down animal protein, everyone. We absolutely can, but not at the rate Americans eat it. We are eating animals way too many times a week and way too many times a day, actually. So we can only eat about 4 meals a week. And I don't miss a day without my gadotana, glutathione, or super aminos. And they're very, very simple. They're very clean. In the Rip and Sip Bella Grace, you've got everything lean and clean supplementation, and you don't need all these vitamins and supplements and bottles of things in your medicine cabinet or your kitchen cabinet. Move your body, eat plant-based, take these few things and really reduce your risk. We're not supposed to get Alzheimer's and dementia with age. That is not supposed to happen.
Yesterday, we were talking about how many people have Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. I'd heard 1 in 4, but we're trying to find out what the real number is. Well, 1 in 9 was for what, Logan? Dementia and Alzheimer's was 1 in 9. So I don't know if you add in, that was 65 and older. Oh, well, they better bring that number down because that's being seen a lot earlier now.
Right. A friend of ours, their spouse, they're 10 years younger than I am. They have early onset Alzheimer's, and just a shame. My father passed away of dementia. He was just along in his, health journey, and very, very sad. And I'll share with you, as soon as I got him off all the medication, I'm not saying go do this, but met with his medical team, got him off all the medication, got him on a few things, and he became lucid. He really did, but he was very far down the highway and only lived about less than 8 weeks. But we had his mind back for almost 8 weeks, which was a gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Melissa was saying that some of these doctors are saying that if you see the beginnings of Alzheimer's and dementia, just the beginnings, she says some of these doctors are saying they reversed it by getting the people to exercise, get their leg strength back, get the blood flowing, and they were able to reverse it.
Absolutely. And, I've studied with, a lot of my practice over the years has been cancer patients for many, many years. And I want to share within a conversation with an oncologist. We have an oncologist in our family as well. And they said, you know what? They said, I'll tell you what, Lana, what you need to do, and we're not talking about this enough, is walk. Walk. People think, oh, I need all this expensive exercise equipment and I need this fancy trainer. Nothing, absolutely. I'm all about trainers and everything. But if you can just walk, and I have a rebounder from Rebound Air. If you could bounce and safely, in front of your TV, but if you can walk, the buddy system works too. Get a friend, get a schedule, and walk. And there's walking pads that you can get that are really affordable. You don't have to go out and get a treadmill that costs, $5,000. There's very, very affordable walking pads. I know I've talked with colleagues, they have them like under their desk. Where they're walking and standing as they're doing telemedicine and telehealth with their patients. But walk, and stay lean. I mean, I know Americans on this whole weight loss craze, but if you can just, in a very safe, healthy way, keep your weight down. That's so tough on the cardiovascular system. And I want you to connect your cardiovascular system with Alzheimer's and dementia, because your vessels run from your head to your toe. I'm telling you, in the super aminos and the gadotana and the glutathione specifically together are going to help with workout recovery, with energy, and going in and fueling your mitochondria. But we have to move as a nation. We have quickly left that agricultural and industrial, movement to this sedentary office and sedentary life. And especially with COVID, what did we all do? We everybody went home to work, and I love Zoom like everybody does, like we do here. We can communicate around the world, but you've got to get moving and just take a few supplements, drink healthy water, healthy, good, clean water, and whole food. And I'll tell you one quick thing. If you will notice the super aminos and the GATA-TANA, you will start to crave healthy food. You don't want the sugar. Actually, when you have sugar, it starts to make you sick. I don't even put as much plant milk in my coffee anymore. It really does help you naturally reduce your appetite. One last thing, Brandon, and this is funny because you and I are always, we don't ever miss a beat just naturally. But when you said NNU last time, I was thinking, what university is Brandon talking about? Do we have a study that I didn't, even read the abstract to? And you were talking about the net nitrogen usage for the super aminos. Mm-hmm. And that's what I shared at the end. This is so important, everyone. As I shared, too much animal protein, you're going to destroy your kidneys and destroy your blood vessels and promote disease. And Alzheimer's and dementia are some of the conditions that you'll promote. But the super aminos, as well as everything else we're sharing, but the super aminos are a protein that your body will use 99% of those amino acids in there. When you eat meat, or you're eating eggs, or you're eating any kind of animal flesh, anything that comes from a mother or a face, you are your body's only using about 38 to 58%. And the rest of it is waste, toxic metabolic waste that your kidneys and your body has to get rid of. So that is not the case with the super aminos. Your body's using over 99% of it. That's what that NNU is. It's net nitrogen usage, which is extremely impressive. It's completely safe, and your body uses 99% of it. So it's getting like 99% of those amino acids, which are building blocks for protein.
Well, by the way, I'll ask you another question. The melissaprotein.com, Melissa said they're selling like crazy.
I tell you all, and I'm the naturopathic doctor that doesn't practice like a naturopath, because we initially are taught like your patients need 82 supplements, which is ridiculous. Your body can't even metabolize all that. This is one of the few things that I use every day, along with, we've got our Bella and our GATA-TAN and glutathione. You will start to feel like, and it's a subtle thing that you're like, oh my gosh, my stomach is flatter. My pants are looser. I have more energy. I'm working out and I recover faster. My skin is tighter. That is because you're getting protein in your cells in minutes. I shared with you, this was in the Physician's Desk reference in 2006, an extraordinary product. Just nothing else is in it, but the amino acids, the protein that, is absorbed in your muscles in 23 minutes. It's outstanding.
Yeah, melissahouseprotein.com. Let me ask you this. melissaprotein.com, sorry. Aluminum. I was talking about a report yesterday about aluminum in the brain and its connection to Alzheimer's. And I know a lot of folks have taken a lot of vaccines, the flu vaccines, and I think some of that stuff had aluminum in the shots, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What about, though, we've talked about the fact that GATA-TANA will remove, reports show mercury from the brain.
Glutathione, yes.
The glutathione, sorry.
Right.
Will help remove mercury from the brain to help prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. What about aluminum?
Absolutely. All heavy metals,
it will help to remove
toxins,
aluminum as well?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Glutathione is a master detoxifier. Remember, God made glutathione. It's in every cell of every human, every plant, and every animal. And we started losing it about age 20. We die without it. We're born with a ton, we die with none. So swishing 2-3 times a day for a couple of minutes, you can spit it out.
Which I've already done. I've already done that today. But you're telling me that I can now, instead of saying studies show that glutathione may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's, I can now add studies show it may remove mercury and aluminum.
Lead, aluminum, mercury, heavy metals in general, we have helped so many people with the glutathione who have taken the shots for one reason or another. But it absolutely is the master detox. It pulls the peroxynitrite, which is the damaging free radical from our cell phones and computers that are it's extremely damaging. It's more damaging than free radicals we get from exercising, eating, breathing, moving. Glutathione will neutralize and detox and eliminate peroxynitrite, which is the dangerous free radical we get from 5G, from our cell phones and computers, that is inescapable. If you live in, the free world anywhere on Earth, you are getting damaging 5G. Waves from your cell phone and your computer, and glutathione is the one thing that will detox that peroxynitrite. So all the heavy metals, all the toxins, forever chemicals, glyphosate, weed killer, all the toxins from the vaccine, peroxynitrite, and all the metals that you mentioned.
How many times a day do you swish with that?
Minimum 2.
Okay.
If I can get 3 to 4, but in the morning and in the evening, and I'll swish, 2 to 3 minutes, morning and evening. If I feel like I need a little pick me up, I'll swish 3-4 times. People that really want to protect the brain as well, your super aminos, your glutathione, and then get the blue bottle of glutathione, and get the yellow bottle, the neuro. Mm-hmm. And you swish with the neuro 5 minutes after you swish with the blue bottle, the glutathione.
Is that what you're doing?
Glutathione. I do the brain honestly, I would say about 3 times a week, and make sure that you do not swish with the brain after 3 p.m. because it's absolutely fueling your brain with the nutrients that it needs.
This is the neuro you're speaking of.
This is the neuro. And you do the blue first. You do the regular glutathione first. Say you swish at 8 a.m., the blue. And then just wait 5 minutes. And Bert, the scientist that's developed this, told me this in person. Wait 5 minutes and then swish with the brain, with the yellow, the neuro. And it's actually pretty tasty. I think it tastes like mango, orange, citrus. But I do spit it out because I've been swishing for so many years now. I spit it out now in my bathroom sink, but you can swallow it. And absolutely, I'll tell you, I've had patients, senior citizens, who really are watching their relatives help their cognitive function with the glutathione and the neuro.
Excellent. Well, there you go, folks.
I'm going to have a brain conversation with your lovely wife, and we're going to help your audience protect their brain health.
Well, I've already swished with this today. But you heard her. She does the morning and the night, and then you do the neuro, the brain one. How often?
I do like 3-4 times a week, usually in the morning. But I could do it every day. But I think that, and not that I'm perfect, not that I'm perfectly healthy, but I have a lot of natural energy anyway. I mean, I'm lean, I feel healthy, and with my super aminos and with the glutathione and glutathione, I feel pretty good. And I have some other things I'll share with you that I'm using to just balance, my whole nervous system. So I think 3 times a week works for me. But if anyone is having any brain issues, or you have family members who have had a concussion, who have fallen, this could be a high school football player that fell and got a concussion on the field. This could be your father who tripped, or your mother who tripped on the stairs and fell and hit their head. Absolutely swish with the neuro. You want to do that like 4, 5, 6 times a day, the first couple of days.
Wow. Excellent. Oh, we love our conversations with Dr. Lana. So we got to move. We've got to exercise, have strong legs to fight off the dementia, the Alzheimer's, and the Parkinson's. We've got to do some NUMI to get that glutathione in our system to help clean out the mercury and the aluminum and lead. And then, of course, we got to get our protein so we keep strong body mass as well. Don't shrivel up. So all of these things are so important. There you go, melissaprotein.com. Again, Melissa said, a lot of people are buying this. She's taking them. She's liking them. She keeps saying, do I look thinner? Does my stomach look flatter? I'm like, I don't think you really needed to do much, but all right. So she thinks she's got good results going. But there you go. She's very happy with all of these things that she takes every day. I haven't started on the protein yet, but I am doing the glutathione, the Numi, and the Gadatana. But she says I'm starting the protein soon. That's what she tells me. So I pretty much just say, yes, ma'am, do what she tells me, because she wants to keep me around a while, apparently.
Absolutely. That's a good plan. I'll say one last quick thing. I have patients over the years who they have children that are playing sports, and teenagers or what have you, or college students or adult children, doesn't matter. But anyone that doesn't want to swallow a tablet, this is pure. It just is digested very, very quickly, goes in your muscles in 23 minutes. However, you can put 5 or 10 tablets in a little baggie. You can crush it, like you take a can of beans. You can crush it and put it in, like 2 or 3 ounces of a smoothie, a shake, even like chocolate almond milk or plant milk, and just shoot it down quickly if you do not like to swallow the tablets. So that's just a tip, because I have a lot of people giving it to their children.
Good. Excellent. MelissaHouseProtein.com. And Dr. Lana, is always great to have you on each and every week. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless everyone. See you next time.
And that's our broadcast for tonight. Appreciate all we do here. Thanks for your support. I think these are all great ways to support us and your health at the same time. But one of the greatest ways to support us is through our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com. Now, I think we're about to have back in stock business cards. So I've been told by Melissa, because she keeps track of all this stuff in customer support and donor relations, to promote these, because a lot of people are asking. We just had some more printed. I think we're supposed to pick those up tomorrow, and we'll start mailing those out. So if you'd like to get a stack of free business cards to pass out to tell people about Worldview Tube, just go to worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com, order your free business cards. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
And welcome to the broadcast. Glad you are with us. All right. Well, someone sent in a request for today's broadcast, and it was a lady. Lady sent in a request and said, can you please do a broadcast on why women are not to be pastors, why they're not to be the shepherds of a local New Testament church? Doesn't mean they can't be involved in ministry and powerful ministry in a lot of ways. We'll get into that. But why is there a biblical prohibition of women as pastors? So, a lady asked us to cover this. Apparently, she has people that are asking this question. Maybe she is kind of pushing back against the idea of women pastors. And so she said, would you please confront this? Will you lay it out from the Bible? Not from Brannon House's opinion, but from the Bible. So I'm going to do that today. If you have a Bible, you might want to follow along, take some notes, write them down for later. And I'm going to read a lot of them. I wrote a new article this morning. You go to worldviewtimes.com, you'll find it, worldviewtimes.com. So if you're like many of the over-the-road professional drivers, you are not going to be able to write. Please don't even try. But you could go later to worldviewtimes.com and print out the entire article or make screenshots of it, however you choose. So you'll have all the notes there. Why women pastors are not biblical. A scriptural examination of God's design for church leadership. I want to make this very clear. This is not Brannon's design. I'm just telling you what the Bible says, okay? Now, why am I bringing this up? And maybe perhaps, well, I've already mentioned because some dear ladies asked me to cover it. But why is this a topic that is really one that we should be covering right now? Well, because partly we got a problem with a lady, I'll use that term to be polite, We have a problem with a lady named Paula White who wants to push herself off and has pushed herself off as a pastor. Maybe some of you don't know that, but she has, quote, pastored a church. And she's President Trump's so-called spiritual advisor. We also saw this week a lady that is supposedly the UCC bishop. And she's the one that says we need a new third Testament. Have you guys heard this clip? I think I covered it last night in my Worldview Report commentary. But here is her own words, listening friends.
A very dangerous thing that I'm about to say now, but since I'm a bit dangerous, I'm of the opinion that we need a third testament because the Bible has become problematic. Slaves, obey your masters as you do the Lord. It's a text. Let the women keep silent in the churches, and if they have any questions, let them ask their husbands at home. Now, I'm a believer. My whole heart, I trust God with my whole heart. I wake up in the morning talking to God and God talking to me. But I am completely frustrated with the ways in which the text speaks to the kind of vitriolic God that makes those kinds of things. And people will say, well, it's in the book. And I said, then we need to pour that page out. And they say, well, you can't do it. It's the Word of God. I said, no, it's words about God. Come on now. But is it the Word of God? No, it is not the Word of God.
Wow. Were you taking notes? I was. This woman claims to be a Christian by her own words. She says she wakes up talking to God and God is talking to her. Well, that gets used a lot in the wrong way. God told me. We hear that. What really people really mean is the Holy Spirit convicted me. The Holy Spirit brought scripture to my memory in my quiet time.